Welcome back, guys. It's craft time. In today's video, I'm going to be fulfilling a few custom orders, including 2 signs and then a couple labels. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I have a few custom orders on my list and I just wanted to get those knocked out, and a couple of them are pretty fun, so I thought we would just do them together. The first one is just simple. My friend ordered a few just little labels for her glass oil jars on her kitchen counter. So I'm gonna just cut those out with my Cricut. All she asked for were some simple, easy to read cursive, olive oil and avocado oil. So I'm just going to create that in Cricut Design Space, weed it out, put it on. A really simple, easy order to fill. However, it really elevated those bottles for her and she was very happy with how they turned out. The next things that we're going to work on is I have 2 custom orders for signs, and we're going to do those together. Now I'm going to be using this thin 12-inch wood sign, and again, these are down in my affiliate links. However, you can pick these pretty much up anywhere now. Sometimes even Dollar Tree has them in stock. I like to use these especially for indoor signs, but because they can be a little bit light, but they work really well for these types of orders. So we're going to go ahead and start with both of them, and we're going to be prepping them. The first one, I got sent an inspiration photo for this one right here, and I'm just going to change the name to fit. And then it was also requested that instead of the bow, it would be a daisy. I don't know the original maker of this sign, again, as it was sent to me as an inspiration, so I'm sorry to not give credit, but I'm sure it was found on Etsy somewhere. And then the second one is for my sister-in-law as she starts out. She's graduating with her master's and will soon be starting as a therapist. And she wanted one that said, "You're in a safe place to spill the tea." And basically that phrase, but on a round, and she gave me kind of the colors that we need to be using. So I'm going to prep both of these by doing the backgrounds. For the first sign with the, like paper, like notebook looking paper, we're going to obviously paint that white. And I'm just going to do kind of a rough paint on this. Obviously I want it to be solid, but in the original inspiration post, it kind of had like a rougher, like raw edge. So I'm going to kind of leave that there. So I'm going to paint in one direction, let it dry completely, and then paint in the opposite direction, just using some chalk paint. I'm using chalk paint so that I can sand down around those edges once we're ready. And it's going to leave that nice, crisp, like raw edge that we're looking for, but also chalk paint dries really fast. So I'm going to take that same white chalk paint. I do water mine down a little bit just to make it more spreadable and easier to use. And I'm going to add some purple acrylic paint into it to get the color that we're looking for. She wanted more of like a lavenderish color. So I'm just going to mix that up until we get the shade we're looking for. It was a little lighter than I wanted, so I added just a touch of blue acrylic paint in with it. I used the bright blue and the purple iris of the apple barrel, and just a touch just to darken that lavender color just a smidge, give it more of a bluish hue. And then I'm going to paint that entire thing solid. So I paint both the front and the back. I do this with my pieces typically to make sure that it looks complete. I did not paint the back of the white sign because with those raw edges carrying over to the sides, the back would be just fine plain. So I'm going to let both of these signs dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and sand down the edges of that of the white sign to give, like I said, that raw kind of rustic look to it. And once we're done with that, just wipe away any of the dust. And then I'm going to do the lines on the notebook paper one. So I'm going to kind of, like I said, match this inspiration. And on here, they're a little more rough. They're not perfectly straight. So it might be hard to watch if we're going to be messy on purpose, which isn't always something I'm good at. But if you don't want messy lines, you can use some painter's tape. You can go right along your ruler to help keep that straight edge. Like I said, or you can measure it out and use painter's tape to get those crisp, clear lines. Since that's not what was sent to me and not like the vibe that this sign is, I am going to do my best to be messy. But again, we're being messy on purpose. We don't want it to look messy as if we just slapped it together. We want it to look messy, more, I guess, rustic, type of feel to it. So I'm going to use my ruler and pencil out the line drawing. So we're going to do several lines across as if where you would write your letters, and then that red line that's down the side. So I'm just using acrylic paint for all of these lines. I'm going to go ahead and do my blue lines first. I'm just going to be tracing that pencil mark, but then I'm going to kind of like, again, be a little bit more messy with it. Once that dries, I'm going to put that red line right on top, and then I'm going to seal both pieces with polycrylic. I like to seal them before I move forward with my lettering. That way I know that the background is going to stay exactly how I wanted it to go. Where one of them we're going to be using chipboard, the other one we will be using a vinyl transfer that we create. So I want to make sure that the transfer tape also doesn't peel anything up. Now with my transfer tape, I don't typically have issues with that, but again, we want to leave it exactly how we just worked hard to get it how we want. So I'm going to seal it and then move forward. From there, I'm going to create what we need in Cricut Design Space. So for the notebook sign, we are going to be doing we're going to do the name, the bottoms. So I just like to go in, I get kind of a standard idea of what they're looking for. Again, I have an inspiration photo, so that helps me know, the look that they want. So I went ahead and created one similar to that, but one that fits our particular sign that we've creating here. And I like to just kind of mock it up. So I use the shape button to do, the 12-inch round, and then I put the wording in there to make sure that we have the sizing and everything correct. I use that mock-up, I take a picture and I send it to my clients so that they can, one, confirm spelling, confirm the look, confirm the size, that it is what they are expecting. And then I went ahead and created the second sign. I'm kind of doing these both together at the same time so that I can keep the steps similar and keep moving forward. So I did the phrase, like she wanted you're in a safe space to spill the tea. So what I did is I searched images, spill the tea, and I found this cute little tea tag already done. And so I did that, and then I did my own font and wording for the "you're in a safe place." And I just mocked that up for her in a font, I had already confirmed with her what type of fonts she's looking for, sent that over for her approval, and once that got approved, I was ready to cut everything out. So I started with the spill the tea because we're doing that on black vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of that laid out, cut out, so that we can weed it and place it on. So while I'm going to be placing this on here, I'm going to start cutting out my chipboard. Sorry, I keep jumping back and forth, but this is just how my brain processes so that I don't get stuck waiting on one thing. So while that vinyl was cutting out for Spill the Tea, I was prepping my heavy chipboard. I think it's 2.0 mm, I believe. Let me check so I don't steer you wrong. Yes. So right here, this is what I'm using is the Cricut chipboard. I tend to find this at Michael's on sale a lot. I don't buy it usually full price. I go in and wait, and I don't know, for some reason tends to end up in clearance, and I usually get these for $5 a piece. So yeah, this is what I'm using. It is smaller, it's only an 11 by 11, so just keep that in mind. But I go ahead and use my heavy grip mat. I place this down where I want it, and then I'm going to use masking tape on the edges to keep it in place. It's just going to help make sure it's not sliding around while it's cutting, because when you cut chipboard, you need to have the knife blade attachment, and it's going to cut in layers. So it's going to pass through many times, and if it slips at all, it's going to throw that off and you're not going to get any clean cuts. So the reason I'm using the chipboard rather than vinyl is because the chipboard has a thickness to it, and that's going to let those letters kind of pop off the sign a little bit more, make it a little more substantial, and that's what they were looking for. So I'm going to start this. I think I typically let it do 16 to 18 passes. My knife blade is still very sharp, so that tends to work for me. I kind of just check in on it as it's going. It's not always easy to know if it's cut all the way through, but what you don't want to do is remove it to check. So if I am going to check on it, I usually like to check, like if there's an E, the center piece of that E, you can pause the machine. Do not take the mat all the way out, but I like to just use my fingernail and kind of flick to see, and if the whole thing comes out, I usually can tell that it's cut all the way through. It's just a visual thing that I've kind of learned. So there's a learning curve to that, but you want to make sure it is cut all the way through, and if you're not sure, just let it complete all of the passes. It does take time, and you need to plan for that. So 20 minutes, half hour, I'm not sure. It's just going to kind of depend on how many passes you do, how intricate your design is. So I just let that run and cut while I'm working on the spill the tea sign. I am going to obviously weed this just like normal, and then I'm using my transfer tape, and my transfer tape is basically one big roll of masking tape. This is listed down in my affiliate links. I love this transfer tape. I've never had issues. It's just sticky enough to take the vinyl of whatever sorts that you're using. I've never tried it with like a glitter or like a thicker vinyl, but any of the standard vinyl, you get it on there and then you can transfer it over, and I have never once had issues with it peeling my paint underneath back up. And I used to have that issue with transfer tape, like standard transfer tape in the past, and so I have never looked back. So I'm just going to take this, get it all ready, center it up. So what I decided to do, since I did 2 different color vinyls, obviously I want to put the tea bag down at the bottom in the background so that the top font would be at the top and overlaying that. So I just kind of offset it just slightly. I was originally going to do it straight up and down, but I don't know, a tea bag's kind of like floating all over. So I just slightly, just enough to the eye that you can see it, placed it down, peeled it back, and then went in and added the next lettering over top. And this turned out really good. I was very, very pleased with it. She's so excited. She loves it, and that's what we like to hear. All we have left for this one is that we obviously want to add a hanger and a cute bow. This already has the pre-drilled holes, so I'm just going to take some white string that I have. I had a thicker one, I couldn't find it, so what I'm going to do to make this string a little more substantial is put it through the hole, find out what size I need, add length to it because I am going to be braiding this, and cut off 3 strings. From there, I'm going to tie all 3 strings together, tape it to my table, and braid it as you would for a standard braid. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to string them all through and tie them off. That way it looks a little more substantial, a little nicer than just a little thin piece of string holding it. And I'm gonna add on a bow. So she wanted the colors like a lavender and a sage color. I happen to have this bow to reuse from another item that I took it off of, and it's like a greenish buffalo check. So I'm going to use that and then add another little purple ribbon to it. So I'm just going to cut the tails down to the sides I need. I did rework it a little bit, and then I cut the tails to have like a little decorative end to it. I am going to floral wire those together, and I did use some hot glue just to put that little purple one right on top. This is for an inside door, so I don't have to worry about it, you know, working with the heat. So then I just used that floral wire to attach it to the string. So I just twisted it down and added it on there, and we are done with this sign. It is super cute. It was easy to do. Again, this is going to be an inside door, so after you put on your vinyl, you don't have to seal it or anything, which is why we sealed our polycrylic first. And then we're going to move on to the next sign. Now that this sign, you know, we've painted the background, we've added on our notebook lines, we sealed it with polycrylic, it has had plenty of time to dry. We are cutting out our letters and things. Once those are cut out, you're just going to pop out the wording and the things that you need, and then I'm just going to set it down and paint it up. I'm going to be using some black chalk paint, and I'm going to paint it up really good. I did 2 passes on this just to make sure that everything was fully covered. The chipboard does absorb the paint a little bit, so you want to make sure that it's even all over just to get a nice finished look. I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some polycrylic again to make sure that it is fully covered and protected, because I don't know if they're going to use this as an inside decoration or a front door decoration, and I do want to give it a bit of protection. From there, I'm going to kind of pre-lay them down to see where I want it to sit and how it looks best on the physical sign. There is going to be a floral part up on the top right-hand sign, so I'm just going to kind of lay it out and see how everything looks together, and then I'm going to glue it down. Now, I've typically been using my STARBOND glue for every project, and I would have used it for this too, but I can't find it. It's somewhere, who's to say? But I'm just going to be using some good old Gorilla gel glue, some super glue, and we're just going to give it plenty of time to rest. So I'm just going to add glue to the parts, not too much, because once you push it down, you don't want it coming out too far, but sometimes it happens. So I'm just going to add that gel glue all the way to the around on the back, wherever it can fit, and make sure you get those little tips of the end, whatever your end letters are, that way it's not coming up. And we're going to place those down. Now we're going to hold some pressure on that until the glue says, like this one says, let's see, 10 to 45 seconds. So I like to just hold it down until I'm comfortable. And then I took an old paintbrush, one that I forgot to rinse out and ruined, and I just used it to scoop off any excess glue that was kind of peeking out of the sides. And then I let this sit for a little bit just to make sure it wasn't going to move around. And then I added the florals. Now for this one, I'm using some of the lamb's ear from Walmart and a little yellow daisy upon request. So I'm just going to be placing it where I need, trimming down stems and kind of wiring it all together. So I took the two lamb's ear, put them opposite of each other, twisted them around each other, and then wired them together with floral wire. And then to make sure that they stay attached to the sign, I went ahead and added a yellow ribbon to add as the hanger for the sign. And then I'm going to use that floral wire, go through that top right hole and wire it all together. I don't feel like glue would have been substantial enough to hold this and make sure it's not going to fall apart. So this is a good way for me to make sure that it is going to stay in place and not fall apart if it is used on a front door. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to add the daisy on. The daisy I did end up hot gluing on. I did use quite a good amount, and then I did also use some of the super glue, so hopefully that will stay in place and be good to go. And other than that, we are golden. I do plan on hitting this with some clear Rust-Oleum matte spray. I have not done that yet, but again, I don't know if this is going to be used for outside, so just want to give it that extra layer of protection. I use the matte version so that, you know, there's no glossy, oh my gosh, glossy finish to it, but that is a personal preference. But I do plan on doing that on the front and the back, just again to give it that little extra security in case it does get exposed to the elements. It will just help it last longer. So those are the projects that we have done today. Let me know which one was your favorite. These are really fun to make. I love doing custom orders. I love the excitement in my customers' voices and how much they love the product or the product. And in this case, I got great reviews from both. So, well, all three. Like I said, the first one was just a small project though. So let me know which one was your favorite. If you have any questions of tips or tricks or something that I may have skimmed over too quickly, or if you have suggestions on how I can do something better next time. I love some constructive criticism so that I can learn and grow with you. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. I'm so happy you're here. If you haven't subscribed, please consider it. We love to have you with us on this crafting journey. Consider joining my Facebook group. And I'm going to be quiet now, take you in for a closer look, and I'll see you next time.